Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and TV discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Keenan.
I'm speaking from a tin can.
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and Rockstone finally has its own show.
Finally, and that is what we are here to talk about today, everybody. We are going to be reviewing the first 2 episodes of Cloak and Dagger, a comic book series that I maybe not enough people really know exists even. Not even like, oh, it's good or it's bad or it's one way or the other. We'll get into that, but I don't think a lot of people even know that this is a thing that exists because it's over there in the Freeform.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, I remember reading, they're talking about a Cloak and Dagger. Then I read it was going to be on ABC Family, and then they changed the name of ABC Family to Freeform. And then I just kind of thought it was one of those things that they talk about and it never happens. And then you guys told me we were watching the first 2 episodes, which made me realize, I guess that happened.
Yeah, and there's like 5 or 6 of them out there. So, but we're going to check into that today to see if it's maybe something that we should continue to watch, or maybe we should just skip it altogether. And maybe there's a reason it's down there in deep, what extended cable. That's extended cable, right? I don't know how these things work anymore.
Premium Plus, I don't know, Basic Plus. It's not premium, but it's not basic.
Yeah, it's probably like your Basic Plus. There you go. That's probably, that sounds apt. So we'll be talking. What's up?
Freeform's one of those channels you have to pay extra each month not to get.
Like, can I not get this channel? Because that's what it's always people talk about, like a la carte channels and stuff like that. That'll never happen. But it's just like, could you imagine just going like, oh, I'll take ESPN and hey, throw Freeform in there, why don't you?
Every cable package I've ever had, and I'm sorry, Sean, if you ever worked for this channel, but every cable package I've ever had has had this channel called GAC that I would double. I would pay twice to have that network not be on my cable package.
Now, what is that? Because it sounds familiar, but I'm not placing a finger.
I don't know, man. It's very, I don't know. I think it's curated by Larry the Cable Guy or something. I don't know. GAC. Great American Country Channel or something, but it really, I'm trying to think. It kind of feels like a show, like it's a channel made for people who live in the South, but owned and operated entirely by folks in like Taiwan or something. Like it's very stereotypical, the programming, at least in my experience. I don't watch it very much.
This episode of Hero Movie Podcast brought to you by GAC. We don't know what the heck's on it, so tune in. That's not
that's the kind of show where you'd have like a reality show about guys in the South who hunt groundhogs to make grease for a living or something.
Makes sense to me. But we won't be talking about that this episode. No, we'll be talking about the first 2 episodes of Cloak and Dagger. And that is not brought to you by GAC. That's brought to you by everyone who supports us over at patreon.com/HMP. We've got another great month here from you guys. And be getting some bonus content, a little pre-show, post-show. You've never heard so much talk about everything from a Pontiac Aztec to,
Lee Majors.
The Fall Guy.
You name it. We talk about it in the pre-post shows and all that kind of good stuff. But to get that, why don't you head on over to patreon.com/HMP and help join this here program today. We don't have any official announcements yet because we don't know the exact dates and times and stuff and everything. But we want to let you know ahead of time that get ready. HMP's coming to Dragon Con this year. Everything is looking rather good. And so we got more and some other things as well. But we'll talk about those as soon as we can talk about them. Gentlemen, what do you say we go ahead and take a listen to the trailer for Cloak and Dagger?
Sure.
First, we look at the past. New Orleans is a roller coaster of destruction and rebirth. Fire, famine, disease, war. It always came down to 2 people. The divine pairing.
I feel like I have to be perfect. Like I have to do everything right.
I go the other way.
I run away from everything. I've had a lot of things taken from me. And everything I have, I've had to steal.
There's something about fear that pushes me. That's my whole life.
Whenever anything goes wrong, I hightail it out of town.
I
think we need to talk.
When we touch, those boom. Assess our limits. It's the same as it was for all the others. One will live, and one will die.
The universe keeps pushing us together.
The universe keeps pulling us apart.
All right, everybody, that was the trailer for Cloak and Dagger. We're going to be reviewing the first 2 episodes here. Here is the IMDb plotline. 2 teenagers from very different backgrounds find themselves burdened and awakened to newly acquired superpowers while falling in love. Oh, doesn't that sound nice? Starring Olivia Holt and Aubrey Joseph. Like we said, it is on Freeform. Formerly ABC Family. Bruce, we've got this thing that I don't know that a ton of people knew was a comic book thing at all, much less that it existed, period. But if I could try to get my stupid mouse to pull up in the flipping file for your theme song. Here we go.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
There we go. I tried to vamp as best as I could before the stupid Skype would move so I could hit the button. Go ahead.
Well, before I get into it, I do want to just give you guys the names of a few television programs that either currently or used to be broadcast on GAC. There's Flea Market Flip, Flippin' RVs, Log Cabin Living, Mountain Life, a show called You Live in What? With a question mark, Barn Hunters, Barn Builders, Big Wheels of Country, Carnival Eats. You getting the idea why I don't like this channel?
I don't know. That Carnival Eats sounds pretty good.
The Jenny Garth Project.
Done and done.
Oh, that dog of mine. That's actually a show that Sean would probably like. Patriotic Country. And I don't know, though. I'll give us one real good one to leave out on. Tori and Dean, Cabin Fever, the Tori Spelling reality show.
Oh, heavens, man. I can't get enough of Tori Spelling. I need to find somebody who oddly looks like a fish from an animated cartoon. Just tell me about country living. God, I've been waiting for that.
It's not the mainstream Tori Spelling reality show. It's the one where her and her husband are in a log cabin for a winter or something. Okay. Cloak and Dagger. Cloak is Tyrone Ty Johnson, and Dagger is Tandy Bowen. And they were created by writer Bill Mantlo, legendary writer, in my opinion. He writes some good, goofy, cosmic comics and stuff. But legendary writer Bill Mantlo, artist Ed Hannigan, and they first appeared in March of 1982. Now, building on something that Adam said earlier, I will admit that I've probably read a grand total of 1 standalone Cloak and Dagger comic over the course of my lifetime. And it was probably somewhere around 1986. Now, I have read other titles in which Cloak and Dagger appear, but I've never been much into their own title. Sometimes I've even had trouble remembering which one is Cloak and which one is Dagger. And if I'm being honest, the only reason I even bought that one Cloak and Dagger comic was because I thought it was a tie-in to the classic Dabney Coleman movie of the same name. Now, I'm not saying that I don't like Cloak and Dagger. I've just not read much of their adventures. But here's what I found out about them. The inspiration for Cloak and Dagger came to Bill Mantlo after a visit to Ellis Island. Here's what he had to say. They came in the night when all was silent and my mind was blank. They came completely conceived as to their powers and attributes, their origin and motivation. They embodied between them all that fear and misery, hunger and longing that had haunted me on Ellis Island. End quote. Now, I'm good at that blank mind part of things that Bill Mantlo speaks of, but any ideas I come up with require the sort of intense concentration that makes the veins in my temple throb like a bundle of grape gummy worms. But the concepts usually come out such that I try to pass them off as coming from a blank mind. Now, an interesting twist on the early Cloak and Dagger comics was that costumed supervillains rarely appeared in the series. Instead, the comics focused on Cloak and Dagger's quest to end the drug trade. I think this was during Nancy Reagan's war on drugs that centered around the principle of just say no. But in case you're not aware of 1980s America, a whole lot of folks just said, sure, why not? What's the worst that can happen? I mean, it's only cocaine. Now, at one point, Dagger was struck blind, but I think she got better, just like that guy who was turned into a newt in Monty Python's Search for the Holy Grail. But Cloak and Dagger met as runaways in New York City. Tyrone was a 17-year-old fella from Boston, Massachusetts with a debilitating stutter, and he ran away to New York City when his speech impediment prevented him from stopping his friend from being shot by the police, who mistakenly believed he had just robbed a store. Tandy is a 16-year-old girl from a privileged upbringing born in Shaker Heights, Ohio, a city I've actually visited. It's a lovely town. And she ran away because her multi-millionaire supermodel mother was too busy with her career and social life to spend time with her daughter. When they met, Tyrone considered stealing Tandy's purse, but before he can, another thief steals it, and Tyrone retrieves it for her. Naive Tandy accepts an offer of shelter from some strange men. Tyrone, who's a little bit wary of the situation, goes along to protect her. The two teens are soon forcibly delivered to a criminal chemist named Simon Marshall, who just happened to be developing a new synthetic strain of heroin. Johnson and Bowen somehow survive being injected by this heroin who's killed everyone else he's tried it out on, and they flee. But during their escape, they find out that the drug turns them into superpowered beings. Because in the 80s, that's how we tried to tell kids not to do drugs, was by showing them stories in which drugs turn kids into superheroes. Now, Tyrone finds himself engulfed in darkness and seized by a strange hunger that eases in the presence of Tandy glowing with a brilliant light. Trying to hide his newly shadowy appearance in a makeshift cloak, Tyrone absorbs Marshall's thugs into his darkness while Tandy strikes them down with daggers of light. I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea to try and spell out Cloak and Dagger's powers as they are depicted in the comics, especially Cloak, whose power I've always struggled to understand. But Cloak acquired the power of the demon Despair's dark form, which gave him the ability to create an aperture into the Dark Force dimension and to dispatch people into the dimension. He also gained the abilities of intangibility and teleportation of himself and others through the Dark Force dimension. People enveloped by Cloak's darkness feel numbing cold and experience terrifying visions of their own greatest fears and nightmares. Overlong exposure to the darkness can drive people insane. Dagger can make daggers. Wow. She's a lot simpler to explain than Cloak. I guess if I wanted to be more detailed, I could explain that Dagger makes daggers out of light, but really, when you get stabbed, does it really matter what the dagger's made of? Also, Dagger is a ballet dancer and fights the drug trade in a ballet leotard thing. I guess the handiest thing about old handy Tandy's dandy daggers, oh boy, that was a lot easier to write than to say. Let me try that again. I guess the handiest thing about old handy Tandy's dandy daggers is that they have the power to cure people of drug addiction. Now that's a superpower we could definitely use in the all too depressing real world. How's that for an ending on a downer, guys?
It's such an interesting thing that it's just like, hey, look, these daggers can go and stab and kill people. Also, they can get you off of heroin.
And, once again, you can't overlook the, I'm going to just go right out and call it irony of a comic book that's made to, like, take on the drug war and, like, maybe make drugs the bad guys. But at the heart of it all, drugs turn the superheroes into superheroes.
Isn't that how it works, though?
So, Adam, how much do you know about Cloak and Dagger?
I think we've covered it, really. I mean, very cursory knowledge. I've never read a book of theirs, I'll be honest. I think I may have, like, had something where they may have, like, had a quick cameo or something in, but never really a full-fledged book.
Yeah, the only time I ever remember seeing them in a book is, like, they would show up from time to time in Spider-Man, but that's about it.
That sounds right.
Bill Mantlo was writing Spider-Man when he came up with them, so they were introduced in Spider-Man, and then they also became a big part of the Runaways in some of the later years.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought I'd read everything about the Runaways. Huh. Anyway.
But I'm talking last 5 years.
Oh, I see.
And, a lot of folks who were familiar with the recent Runaways, Cloak and Dagger kind of coexisting comics kind of wondered if this show was going to overlap with the Hulu show a little bit.
I was about to say, how cool would that have been had this been picked up by Hulu and then maybe, down the road or something, you could have a little bit, some crossover time.
I prefer this universe to the Berlanti universe.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the show, because Sean, you texted us. We got a group text going on because we like each other.
Mostly pictures of race car drivers drinking milk. But
that's a whole nother story, and everybody that's not a part of the Patreon's like, what?
Grimace dressed as Thanos.
It's what happens. But you texted something as you're watching this, going that this show, and I think I agree with you, looks kind of expensive, but it doesn't feel like anyone's ever going to be watching this program.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's a mystery to me. I understand who this show is made for, which is a nice change. This is for younger viewers, which is fine, and it's the kind of like a YA show where it's like, this show's really deep. Oh my God, you guys, this show's really deep.
Oh yeah,
but they have spent a whole lot of money on this show. It's almost all on location, and why is there so much money thrown at the show when no one knows the show even exists? I mean, we have a podcast dedicated to TV shows and movies and reviewing them when there's superheroes involved and comic books involved, and we didn't even know it was on the air. So, for a regular viewer, like somebody who, is just like, hey, I'm just going to watch TV, what's on? But they're going to fly by this show.
And I don't understand how the television branch of Marvel Studios makes their decisions. I really don't, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., though it has improved near the end of its life, is on ABC. It's on network television. It's going to reach a larger audience than anything else they do, no matter how bad it is, just by sake of, like, it is shot at people against their will, basically, being on network television. Then they have all the stuff on Netflix, which is really cool. And Netflix sort of makes sense because they can kind of push that R barrier. You know what I mean? They can kind of do the R-rated thing, but they could also do that on, I don't know, premium cable or something. But I think Netflix is premium cable now for all intents and purposes.
Ooh.
And then they put Runaways on Hulu, which I didn't quite understand. They do The Inhumans, another ridiculously lousy show, and put it once again on broadcast television. Then they do this show, which is every bit as interesting to me, going into only 2 episodes as Runaways is, but they put it on Freeform, which used to be ABC Family, which I think the only thing I know about ABC Family is that they used to show that show with Joey Lawrence and Melissa Joan Hart as old people. And then they show a lot of like Christmas movies with Jenny McCarthy or something. And that's about it.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But it seems like they're trying to rebrand it, where it's like, this is for edgy teens now. This network's for edgy teens.
Oh yeah, that's totally been there. Like, because ABC Family, even for a good while, was playing stuff that you're like, family? That show? I don't know if I go so far as to be like, hey, family, let's sit down and watch this show about,
And I know that there was a long day. There was a long day that ended with some kind of meeting regarding rebranding ABC Family, because family sort of means G-rated in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So they said, well, we don't want people to think that it's only going to be G-rated stuff. So we need to define our new format. And somebody says, you know what? I'd like it to be sort of more free form, not be pinned to a format. And they said, okay, let's just call it free form and go home. Because nobody watches this channel anyway.
Jensen, you are a genius.
But sometimes there are shows that really want to get on the right channel to get exposure. Like there are shows that really want to be on a bigger channel. But then there are channels that really want to build a premiere show to bring in to make people more aware, like Stars with Black Cells. I feel like they really wanted people to know Stars was a legit channel, so they spent a lot of money on Black Cells, which was probably a financial failure. But you know what I'm saying? They really tried to catch her.
And they're making, if memory serves here, they're making so much money with Power right now over there on Stars. That's a gigantic hit for them.
Yeah, but I don't know if like they put Cloak and Dagger on Freeform because they thought it would bring some Marvel fans to Freeform, because I don't think it will. I really don't. But it seems good enough that they probably could have put it somewhere else if they really wanted to, like at least Hulu or Netflix.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, it would make sense to put this show up on Hulu. That way you can have the same universe that the Runaways are in, which, by the way, like in my opinion, and looking in the rearview mirror of that first season of that show is terrific. Like that's a solid show.
And
No, go ahead.
This show, Cloak and Dagger, from what I've seen in the first 2 episodes, and Runaways, they're different shows, but they would attract enough overlap in audience that I think they could have sort of the kind of synergy that Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead do. Like, they're totally different places with pretty different stories, but the same kind of people are going to watch them. So like on Hulu, you could have your couple of months of Runaways. Then when that's over, you have your couple of months of Cloak and Dagger, then go back to Runaways or whatever. Like I could see them having some synergy of audience that they're not going to get by having them in such different platforms.
But
agreed.
Here's the thing though, like for what it is and stuff, this is actually quite the hit for Freeform, this program. Its broadcast numbers, as you might imagine, are a little bit low. They're all like just, in the 500,000 to 1 million range, right in there.
It's higher than that. I didn't know.
Well, that's the thing. That's the regular broadcast one, but all the digital stuff and everything brings it way, way higher. I don't have the numbers right in front of me right now, but I was looking at it, and the digital numbers from like streaming services and all that kind of stuff, and Day After and Plus Sevens, all that, whatever all the industry mumbo jumbo. The show is actually one of Freeform's top, if not top, performing things since a good while. So they're doing something right, I guess. But again, I think it's one of those, weeds are most certainly not the market for this program.
And, I know that word of mouth can do a lot for a show, but with Cloak and Dagger, even if somebody loves this show, I think they're going to have a hard time explaining how to watch it, like what channel Freeform is.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, now, while I think this is a good thing, and I guess we can kind of get into the show itself, is that the show is certainly taking its time to get to where it's going.
And not only that, but as far as like trying to recommend the show to someone, it has the Matrix problem, because it's almost impossible to explain what the movie The Matrix is, to somebody who'd never seen it before.
Yeah, the elevator pitch for this is hard, yeah.
Right, and it's the same thing with Cloak and Dagger, where you cannot describe in 2 easy sentences what the show is about.
Yeah, that is one advantage Runaways has over this when you're just trying to tell people what it is. Like the conflict in Runaways is the kids versus their parents. Like very literally. It's not like a John Hughes version of kids versus their parents. Their parents are evil, like evil alien worshipers, and the kids are trying to escape that. Here, I know that in the end, the bad guy is going to be kind of like Roxxon, but it's a vague concept of who the villain is in the show right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you feel the foreboding when you're watching it, and you can feel the conflict, but when you're trying to explain the conflict to folks, it's a little bit nebulous, much like Cloak's powers. Because let's just say this, having seen 2 episodes, can either of you tell me what Cloak's powers are in this show?
They both seem to have and I'm just going to go by what we've kind of seen here, not like what little bit I know about the characters. It seems like they have some sort of almost like reading minds kind of power, and she of course has the dagger. I mean, the name is
like Dagger's pretty easy because we have seen her make blades come out of thin air and stab people. Like, we know what she can do. But Cloak went to sleep and woke up in the trunk of a car.
Yeah, he just it seems like he gets blackout drunk. He's quite the vagabond. So
and then somehow he managed to see one of his mother's nightmares. And I guess he has some uncontrolled teleportation ability, because we do have one scene where, at the end of the second episode, not to jump too far ahead, but it becomes clear that he has some kind of teleportation ability over which he has no control. And we also kind of get the idea that somehow when the 2 of them are together, their powers work better than when they're apart. Not quite like Wonder Twins, but close.
The other part to it too is that they try to like drop hints that even before the accident happens, that he's good at hiding. Because they mention it like 2 or 3 times before the accident happens, before the Roxxon incident on that pier.
That I'm a firm believer, having lived through so many failed experiments of bringing superheroes to the mainstream, and now superheroes are mainstream, but I'm still painted by my experience in the 80s and 90s, as are you, Sean. And I believe that you really need to have some clear aspect of what the hero's power is to get normies to watch the show. And I think with Cloak, people don't know what his power is,
Right.
And his power can be multi-dimensional. Like he can have this vague dream walking and stuff, but you need to make it real clear. Either this guy teleports, or maybe this guy can absorb light like Blackout, which he can kind of do, and he does that once. But I think you need to make it a little more obvious pretty early on what Cloak's power is. Honestly, their failure to do that in the comics, I think, is why this duo is forever banished to the C or D list of heroes.
Do you want like like kind of a Shazam kind of elder to be like, hey, here's the deal, here's what you got, and here's how to use it and stuff like that? Is that what you want?
It's real easy. Have him right from the beginning when his power first expresses itself and he's in trouble. He wraps himself up in something, because they've given him these makeshift black cloaks without actually giving him his costume yet.
Which I like.
Conveniently, there's a big black piece of burlap or a black sheet everywhere that he's in trouble. But they need to just show him wrap himself up and disappear. It's that simple. Just like Obi-Wan when he's fighting against Darth Vader. He just wraps himself up and disappears and reappears somewhere else. And it's okay if he can't control where he reappears, but I think make it clear, okay, this guy can teleport. And then from there, we can deal with all the other more bizarre aspects of his power.
Yeah, agreed. The other thing about these two characters also is I can't understand that. Okay, so was he poor before the incident, and then after the incident they're rich now? Is that what's going on?
Here's what I get. His mother was working hard to make a better life for the family. Now, they had been poor, but when it started, the kid, his older brother, says, if my mom catches me doing this, she'll slap the black off of me. And they say it looks like it's already coming off. So you get the idea he's already moving up in social status at that point. Mom's taking him out of the bad neighborhood, trying to get him in a better school. Like some of the subtle things tell me that this is an upwardly mobile family is what they want us to think. And mobility has begun when the incident happens. But when the brother gets shot, or when the brother disappears, doesn't get shot, disappears, mom kicks into overdrive, and she becomes like Tiger Woman and really begins overachieving at that point. So they're even further up the scale by the time we see him again in high school. You follow me?
I do.
Like they're doing better, and she's getting better clothes and trying to get him to go maybe to a better school or something, but they're still they haven't moved all the way to the east side like the Jeffersons, but they're in the neighborhood next to the old neighborhood. So it's a little bit better, but he still can hang out with some of the old kids from the block, and we're seeing him in the early stages. And then when something bad happens to one of her children, she can't dawdle. Like she has to get to the moving on up like George and Wheezy as fast as possible.
Right. Okay, I see.
That's how
because the part I wasn't understanding was, did they sue the Roxxon Corporation and they got money from that? I couldn't figure that part out.
Well, I don't think they understand that Roxxon is at all related with their son's disappearance. Their son was out doing no good. The mom is convinced the son was out up to no good.
Right.
And because of his own poor judgment and running with the wrong crowd, he disappeared and drowned. And there were drugs in his system, according to the fake cop report.
Right.
So she thinks that it's the neighborhood that killed him. She doesn't know Roxxon's involved. It's Dagger's mother, Tandy's mother, who's, Tandy's father worked for Roxxon. She's the one trying to sue Roxxon. But what we're seeing is Tandy was rich and got poor, and Ty was poor and got rich. So they're going in opposite directions on the social scale. And it's a little bit of a twist on the comics where Ty, Bill Mantlo, 1982, the black character is from the inner city and poor, and the white character was a multimillionaire who was running away from the horrible torture of being extremely wealthy.
Right.
But they're kind of flipping that a little bit here, which is interesting. You got to update stuff.
Oh, if it weren't for all of this money, I'd be living such a glorious life.
Look at how callous my hands are from counting all these hundreds. Do you know how much I spend on rubber bands to wrap my $100 bills in every month?
Ugh, it's unconscionable.
It's like the famous story. Pablo Escobar spent $100,000 a month on rubber bands to put around his $100 bills.
It sounds like an utter load of crap.
Either that or somebody was really ripping him off on rubber bands.
Hey, that's your C-47 budget right there. It's like, why is this $5,000? It's for our special stuff. Shut up.
Listen to you with the C-47 reference. Good job by you.
Now, what do you guys think of our principals here? Aubrey Johnson plays Cloak, the fella here. And he got his start, man. I found this real cool when I was just like reading about him on Wikipedia, trying to get to know a little bit, because I don't know these actors. But Aubrey Johnson, the reason I don't know him is he started out on stage in the theater, and he played Simba in The Lion King. My son got a huge kick out of that because, a little plug for local theater, but my son is Simba in The Lion King right now. So maybe he'll grow up to be on Freeform.
Maybe one day, son, you'll hit this glorious chasm that is Freeform.
You'll get to be on the network that reminded people Melissa Joan Hart used to be a thing.
Call it Nickelodeon for grown-up kids.
And then Dagger, she's a Disney kid, like from... Because Disney will have a kid that's on one show, and if they're popular, they'll be on like 3 shows, and then they'll move on. Kind of like Zendaya. So Dagger, Zendaya is probably a little bit more of a recognizable name, but you know what I'm talking about. She was on a show called Kickin' It, which apparently is a karate-themed comedy.
It sounds like speaking of elevator pitch, that's what Bruce's elevator pitch is like. Look, it's called Karate Kid. See.
It's a karate-themed comedy, and if I learned anything from Beverly Hills Ninja, you can't go wrong with karate-themed comedy.
No.
But so I guess she's got some experience as an action star. Does that count if you're on a Disney Channel show about karate?
Yes, hardcore action karate.
Something. Oh, she was also one of the Kids Bop kids.
Oh.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Because once again, the Disney deal is, if you're on a show, you also have to make at least one album to sell to the people who watch the show. You know what I mean? Whether you're a singer or not, you're going to make that album.
But that also means that she is going to eventually ask for her character to sing on the show.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, there's going to be dream episodes or something like that.
Dazzler. She would make a good Dazzler. Alison Blair. What if we find out that she's not really Tandy Bowen, that she was switched at birth, and she's Dazzler?
Now, that's a twist I can get behind. That's out there and creative.
So I can see the pitch to her. Okay, this is what we'll call a good news, bad news situation. Good news, you get to sing on the show. Bad news, it's ABBA.
You could do worse.
Yeah, actually.
Mamma Mia 2 in theaters this weekend.
At least. But here's the thing. First of all, I was glad to see that she's like, because this girl looks young. Holy crap, she looks like she's 15.
Oh yeah.
Both the kids do.
Yeah,
both the kids do. But I think that's what's great about them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is that they don't look like they're 30 years old.
But being on ABC Family, I thought maybe the show is going to be a little more wholesome. But it starts off with now the actress is, I'm sure the actress is over 18, but like we said, she looks under 18.
She's like 21.
She's what?
She's 21.
Good, because they put her in sexually suggestive positions right off the bat.
Yeah.
Kind of shocked, because I'm still thinking ABC Family, not Freeform.
You're right, but at the same time, too, it's like, it shows you that it's like, to me, that's a good show, because all of a sudden, like, you're off base a little bit going, because, gosh, she looks young. It's just like, even as a not parent, I'm just going like, oh, girl, get out of there.
I mean, when we first see her, she's the little girl going to ballet class with the ballet slippers, which I think is a nice little Easter egg to the comics, where Dagger was far more obsessed with ballet for a 17-year-old runaway, than what they should be. But they do show her in the ballet slippers as a little girl, and we see she still likes ballet as a teenager. But when they first show us the older version of Tandy, like the present-day version, the first thing I think is, oh, that must be like what high school boys think is sexy now. But then they go on to show me, oh, no, this is geared towards college-age boys. When she's like, in the bar picking up a guy.
Let's talk about those kids for half a second, because the show feels like, at least at this point within 2 episodes, feels like they're going to give us a lot of like little flashbacks here and there of the younger kids, kind of getting as much out of those kids as they can. I don't think the little girl, I don't think she's overly gifted as far as acting goes. It's tough when you're that age. I get it.
But she's not asked to do much either. I mean, she's
asked to cry underneath while that car is starting to flood with water, and like that is not belisle the agency of a small child who is drowning in a vehicle. She was just not nearly scared enough.
Small child drown in a vehicle.
Not that I can. Do you remember that Phil Collins song? It's something about that.
I've never seen it either, but having raised small children, sometimes you'd be amazed at how much, I don't know, it's like an evolutionary defense mechanism, but sometimes when something really bad happens, they don't grasp the concept that this is a really bad thing. Like if you've ever been in a car accident, not like a terrible one, but even a moderate car accident with a child in their safety seat in the back, they don't start crying until after it's over and they see mom or dad get upset.
Yeah, that's true.
What's going on? They're just kind of confused.
Now, how do you explain the young cloak there not looking anything like what his future self will look like?
Oh man, I don't know. You've seen that young picture of me that I shared on Twitter and Facebook. I've changed so much. It just happens.
You look exactly the same. You were just like they just added growth hormone to you, and then that was like, congratulations, you have an adult child with a beard now.
Take a Sharpie and draw a beard on that shining star picture, and you got me.
It's all the same thing. But this kid, man, he like that kid looks nothing like the adult version. His older brother there looks more like him. But obviously, that timeline-wise, that doesn't work. It makes sense at all.
Well, you know what? I stuck with Westworld, and they have a young version of a character that looks nothing like the old version there. So if Westworld can do it, so can Cloak and Dagger.
That old saying.
Yeah, because I don't want to. I started to go into it and thought maybe I shouldn't spoil Westworld.
Nah, people, it's like I hear things.
So I'll shut up about Westworld. But yeah, you're right, man. They don't look very much alike. But, now, there are chubby, because the young version's kind of round, I guess you could say.
There's a bit of that, but like the skin tone is wildly different. That's the biggest thing. Is it like his skin tone, like they don't even get the same color skin tone on him, not even close.
Okay, well I'm definitely not going to tread on ice as thin as the skin tone on.
I'm just saying he don't look like him.
No, but let me very gracefully get you away from this topic, Adam, by saying that this show is clearly made by white people, because white people a lot of the time are just like, well, he's a black kid.
He's a little black kid. That's like exactly. That was a casting choice made by a white person who just goes, nah, they're black, whatever.
These are the same network executives that tried to convince me that Webster and Alex Karras were related, right?
I don't think that's how that show worked at all.
Oh man, but I never for a moment thought that Arnold looked like Todd Bridges' little brother.
God, I loved Webster.
I switched shows on you, but anyway.
Listen. I was a huge nobody was a bigger Different Strokes fan than me back in the day. So I get it.
If anybody doubts how much I love Webster, just go read a little book called Nerdspawn Genesis. Now, back on topic.
That's all you got to know, man.
Back on topic. You know what? I think the kids are fine. Let's move on.
What do you think about the actual her dad being the one that's kind of taking place for this, big event to happen? And do you believe that this may steal a little something from the Flash, pages here, and then throw up like, hey, not only did this affect you, it affected these other people, and blah, 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 blah.
Well, I think you put your finger right on it. Despite the fact that maybe we don't enjoy, actually, I'll say you guys don't enjoy the Berlanti verse as much as I do. I'll just say that. It's been very successful. And I could see how this might not even just be collateral thinking or parallel thinking. This really might be, hey, why don't we do a little bit of that Flash thing here? Because they don't have to do anything with it if they don't want to, but it always gives them a way to bring in any kind of superpowered people they want to and just blame it on Roxxon.
Any superhero of the week, or supervillain of the week that you wanted to, just bring them right in there. I mean, it literally is what the Flash did, so I see no reason why not.
Finally, we might have a show that's perfect for the television debut of Pace Pot Pete.
We know it's been on your wish list for some time.
I think he might be a Bill Mantlo.
I don't think we're going to get it. I don't think we're going to get a supervillain.
Well, it would be in keeping with the comics if we didn't. I mean, that was once again, maybe another reason that the comics didn't succeed is because they very intentionally said, you know what, this isn't going to be about superheroes fighting supervillains. This is going to be about superheroes trying to make a difference in real world issues with drugs.
Now, do you think we're going to keep with the same drug angle?
No, I don't think they're going to keep much of the drug angle other than, at some point, something, and it might even be related to their powers, but something is going to happen very soon, I think, where Tandy doesn't use pills anymore. I think her mother stealing all of her pills might be the first step towards, like, we might see her, if we watch episode 3, she might start going through some withdrawals or something, and then she'll maybe get through it because Cloak puts his dark, misty powers around her or something.
Her mom is a great scummy mom. I love it.
Man, yeah, I like that actress too.
Yeah,
she's been in she's like one of those that guy, only it's a that lady instead of a that guy. But I mean, she's good at this role, and she's familiar. I know I've seen her places, but I couldn't tell you her name, that kind of thing.
I was looking it up.
Something else that they haven't even mentioned that I'm waiting for someone to say something about this whole angle is the fact that the way that this story is set up, Tandy has to be older than Ty, doesn't she? I mean, Ty is still in high school. He's worried about high school basketball. Tandy is clearly over 18, I think, the way she's being depicted here, right?
I don't know that I go so. I'd say the way that it's been depicted, like you would hope that
maybe a year or two older.
I think she's already either graduated or old enough that she doesn't have to go to school anymore. Like she's 18 because she's not going to school.
Or maybe she's just truant.
I get the idea.
So
though,
it looks like her
like a little older.
It looks like her biggest role. Andrea Roth is the actress who plays Dagger's mom. It looked.
Oh, really? Classic HMP timing there.
You know
looks
what happened?
Was. Yeah. Can you believe that? That's the next thing we'll hear.
But, unbelievable, right?
in the comics, Cloak was a little bit older than Tandy. And here, I think, once again, they're sort of reversing those roles. Tandy, I believe we're going to find out Tandy's at least 3 years older than Ty. And I think that's going to have some kind of significance as it goes on, because Tandy can sort of get away with just disappearing, but Ty can't, Ty's still a minor, and his mom is definitely not the kind of mom who's just going to let that go if he disappears.
No, your brother mysteriously dies. Mom is going to tend to hold on to that a little bit and keep you under her wing a touch.
So I almost wonder if there'll be sort of a storyline where it gets framed by the police or the authorities that maybe Tandy has kidnapped Ty or something, because she has kind of those criminal ties already, and Ty's mom is worried about him. Criminal
ties. I see what you did there that you didn't do on purpose.
I'm just curious because there's an age gap that I expected them to be the same age. Kind of like in Runaways. Sure, one of them might have been a sophomore while the other one was a senior, but they're all high school aged.
Yeah.
But here, I think that I expected them to be essentially the same age, and they're not doing that. And I'm kind of curious how that's going to play out.
Or maybe they don't mention it ever.
Yeah, that's how I think it'll probably end up going, is that I don't think it'll ever come up, really. It'll just be like, oh, you, all right, we're together now.
It almost has to when you've got the non-high school and the high school, because like when she disappears, it's a very different story than when he disappears.
He's going like, my third class is chemistry today, I gotta go. And she's just like, I feel like fighting crime. Why are you going to school, you bunch of stupid?
And what was the biggest role that Miss Roth ever had? We lost you, Sean.
She was on Rescue Me for 7 years, the Dennis Leary show. On FX.
Yes, she played his wife, didn't she?
Yes.
That's where I know her from. Even though I only saw that show on commercials and stuff, but you saw enough of his family life that you'd see her, because that was one of those shows that I think people liked, but I didn't watch.
Right. It's one of those things where, wow, that show's been on for 10 years. It's one of those shows.
And I can't even say that I didn't like it. It's not that I didn't watch it because I didn't like it. I just literally never tried it,
Right. No, I'm the same way.
Because that was pre-streaming where you couldn't just try everything. If it came on the same time as, what did they call that fighting robot show, Adam?
BattleBots?
Yeah. If it came on the same time as BattleBots, forget it. I wasn't going to watch it.
Man, BattleBots was so good.
I mean, to give you an idea of how long she's been in the business for, she was on My Secret Identity. That is a long time.
Was that the Jerry Connolly show? Who was on My Secret Identity?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
man.
it is the Jerry Connolly show.
So this isn't her first.
Jerry O'Connell.
That's what I meant.
Jerry O'Connell.
This isn't her first superhero show, then.
That's right.
So you really don't think that do you think there's no reason for the switch? And like, to me, switching the ages up is a conscious decision because this actress could easily play a high school kid.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, look, you have a fair point here, but just knowing the way some of these shows work, like they're going to keep going with what's working, you know? So like if they find the angle that makes people really love the show, then they're not going to delve deep into this thing for at least a season.
Okay, I just figured there has to be a reason for that kind of change because it's a needless change. You know what I mean?
No, I'm with you, man. But
I call that a Goyer change. It's called I did it because I could, and screw you, I don't care.
It's like if there's a character in the comics who has 2 arms, and they cast an actor who has 2 arms to play that character, but then he shows up on the show and they depict him as only having 1 arm. At some point, they got to talk about why has this guy only got 1 arm. You know what I mean?
It is just like that.
You know when your bus driver tells you to not stick your hand out the window?
Why is Tyrion Lannister played by a fully formed man?
Oh man, yeah. But I don't know, man. What do you think about New Orleans? Do you think it's in that they changed the setting in New Orleans just simply because that's where they filmed it?
It's called That's Where the Tax Credits Are, and you gotta mention it.
And, I totally understand why they're filming in New Orleans. But I'll be honest, plenty of shows filmed in New Orleans don't claim that they're in New Orleans. So I guess that's nice. At least own up to where you're filming it at. I don't know. They could have easily have just said this is generic. They could have said this is National City, and I wouldn't have thought twice about it.
At least it didn't be look at this cesspool.
They shot that last Fantastic Four movie in New Orleans. You'd never know it.
Yeah. And, like almost every Marvel comic, it was set in New York City in the comics, of course. But I guess that makes sense. There aren't a whole lot of offshore platforms in New York, so that part works better.
Yeah, agreed. So who is the big, what is the big deal with Roxxon? I mean, I know that they're a competitor to Tony Stark.
Well, Roxxon, I probably know them best from Alpha Flight Comics, but they're ever present. They're just they're the Luthor Corp of the Marvel Comics. They're just like the generic evil corporation. And of course, the name is strikingly similar to Exxon. Right. So I think some of the creators maybe were saying something about Exxon when they did it. But yeah, Roxxon's just this ever-present evil corporation. As far as Stark Industries' big rivals were probably Hammer and Trask.
I'd say Hammer and Trask got to be the
Hammer,
2 big
Trask,
ones.
But Roxxon, they're just the evil oil company. I think it came up in Alpha Flight a few times because, they made their evil superheroes to fight against Alpha Flight so they could probably drill for oil in an Indian reservation in the Yukon.
Well, you figure, you're around this time, that kind of like 80s sort of thing. And, like between the drugs and the oil, it's like, it's a perfect 80s sandwich.
Yeah, but Roxxon's not specific to any Marvel property. They're just an ever-present. Whenever they need, like, the evil corporation, they use Roxxon. If they want a specific individual, they'll give them a non-Roxxon corporation like Hammer and Trask. But, like, Roxxon is just, Roxxon.
Gotcha.
This episode of H&P brought to you by Roxxon. Roxxon, we're not just doing that kind of evil stuff anymore.
We're like Exxon, only eviler.
So what do you guys think about, because it seems, and again, we've only had 2 episodes of this, so I couldn't tell you that it goes on, but if I was a betting man, I would say that it would, is that every show has we joked around a little bit, but every show does have a musical number in it. There is a music video of sorts in both of these episodes. And that becomes, to me, I guess, in a lot of these sort of ways, and I guess some of the CW's done a tad bit of this, but maybe not to this level, of storytelling via music video, if you will.
Now, here's one thing I'm going to say. I don't find the musical numbers distracting in Cloak and Dagger like maybe someone would in Luke Cage. And distracting doesn't mean a bad thing. There are pleasant distractions. But when a musical number hits in Luke Cage, it's like the rest of the story's on pause.
Well, those aren't serving the story by and large. You'll have a sprinkling of something in there, but it doesn't support it, not like this show does.
But here, until you mentioned that each episode has a musical number, I didn't realize it. You know what I mean? Like when you mention it, I know what you're talking about, but at the time, it didn't like pull me out and say, okay, here's a big musical number, which I mean that is a good thing. I like the music. I didn't find it distracting.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's done in a way where it's not like, come on, guys, let's move along. But also it helps that we were only watching 2 episodes. I mean, if we were watching, 6 episodes in a row, it might be a different story.
It would have laid in there, I think.
And, I like it. This is the world of contradictions inside the mind of Bruce Leslie here.
Isn't that always the case?
A lot of the things that I'll call the show out on for maybe not helping it find its biggest audience might also be some things I like about the show. Like I say, I'm surprised they didn't make the powers more clear-cut. I'm surprised we don't have a more clear-cut villain for that whole elevator pitch idea to help it find a bigger audience. But I kind of like that I'm a little bit curious about what's going on. Because I'm the kind of guy who will want to maybe make it through to the end of the puzzle and see where this is going instead of watching an episode and saying, well, that doesn't make sense, and turn it off.
I think
that also comes from reading comic books, because when you grab a comic book, you usually are in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
And at least it was that way. It used to be that way. And so half of the fun was trying to figure out where we were in the world. And that's what this show is pretty successful at doing, is it's off kilter, and it keeps you guessing a little bit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, like you said.
And it's not quite, to the extreme that something like Legion would be, but it's definitely more nebulous than something like Runaways.
Yes. And just to go back to Legion, because for some reason I just love talking about the show. Legion is like a wholly different animal. You know what I mean? Like, that show is made for people who I couldn't tell you who that show is for. But
Weirdos.
This show is this show's audience is not for the same people who are watching Legion.
Oh gosh, no.
And bringing in just kind of my my own biases coming into the show, knowing that it was on Freeform, kind of what my own opinions maybe of Cloak and Dagger from the 80s were. I was expecting this to maybe be a little closer in tone to like a Power Pack sort of story than what it was. I mean, I was very surprised that they tackled the idea of things like date rape. They tackled that in the first 2 episodes. They show her actually snorting drugs on screen.
Yeah.
Former, Disney lady. Wasn't expecting that on an ABC, an ABC funded show. So I think that there's some surprises that they're not necessarily a good thing. Like if this same thing had happened on another outlet, like if this were a Netflix show, I would certainly expect this sort of stuff. But because I wasn't expecting it, it caught my attention. I guess catching your attention is better than boring you. Once again, I don't want to make it sound like I really like shows that dive into dark stuff like, what we hit on pretty early on in this. But they do kind of make it clear, like, if you tuned in thinking you're going to be watching Disney XD, we want to make it clear right now that no, we're going to deal with some serious stuff, or at least what we think is serious stuff.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, maybe it's just because we didn't watch that many episodes of this. I really, it clipped along for me. This isn't something where it's painful to watch, or something where you hate watching it like I used to with Krypton. Like it's one of those shows where it's interesting enough for me as a full-grown man watching a show for children. It had enough in it to where I was interested watching it,
And a little inside baseball, a little behind the scenes from just where I was digging about what the people making the show have in mind, what their vision for the show is. They do picture that this show exists in the same universe as the Netflix shows do, more so than Runaways, I guess. And also, now I didn't pick this up. I would have never caught it on my own. But we see the lady cop in the first 2 episodes, who's kind of
we just call them cops. I'm just messing with you.
Well, the character's a female character.
There you go. I know.
And her name is Bridget. Her name is Bridget O'Reilly, and she is a character from the comics that works with Cloak and Dagger in their war on drugs. But apparently, and I didn't catch this, but I also haven't made it through all of Luke Cage season 2 yet. But apparently, there's some line where Misty Knight talks about all the mess with Scarf got so bad in Harlem that Bridget moved to New Orleans.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the character never appeared on Luke Cage, but her name gets dropped by Misty Knight, and she moved to New Orleans after the Scarf thing went down. So, you know, they're kind of setting up that this does exist in that universe, and there's no like specific crossovers, but I guess they're going to lay some Easter eggs to let us know they're in the same universe, and then who knows what could happen in the future.
I mean, I guess all Marvel Studios, you know, I mean, who's to say?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, you know, one of the things that I thought they were doing with that character, because in the first episode or two, she doesn't say anything. And so I thought it would be a really, like, what a neat gimmick that you have a character who never speaks on the show. Like, what a neat idea.
But also seems to be getting stuff done.
Yes. Yeah. But, and I mean, you're just not watching her speak.
Yeah, she can speak. We just don't get to see her do it.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, what an interesting idea. And that's exactly what I mean. That she's fully capable of speaking. She just doesn't want to, or like we just don't see her speak. And I just thought, what an interesting like
in the series finale, when the show's finally run its course, in the final scene of the final episode, she speaks for the first time, and it's James Earl Jones's voice that comes out of her.
You have been
found guilty. This is truly a strange world we live in.
I thought you were going to go a different way with it, where she says, you know, something that Silent Bob would say.
Oh yeah, no.
You don't understand, man. The people are trying to get you two down. It just goes into a whole spiel. I like that. Either or. I enjoy it.
Oh man. But
what I can't tell from either of you is, did you enjoy watching this show?
Yeah. I was intrigued. And nowadays that's almost better than joy. I mean, I love a good fist pump, simple joy. That's getting harder and harder to find, but something where I'm intrigued and like I really do want to watch the next episode, something that I would consider binge worthy is where I feel like there's a question yet to be answered, so I want to go right on into that next one. This does give me that kind of binge feeling.
Yeah, I think they're laying it out nicely in kind of that very comic booky sort of fashion, and they're just. And I think you're right, and I think that's where we all are kind of getting like the little bit of joy that we're getting out of this. And you're right, Sean. I think we were very wise to just do 2 episodes here in just this sort of time span. Is that you're just getting enough. You're just getting enough information to go, yeah, I'll watch another one of those. Why not? You know, it's like it's just good enough to kind of keep you stringing along a bit.
Yeah. And when we first met the characters, you know, like the first 15 minutes, I'll say, of the first episode, I had this idea in my head. I thought, great. So this is going to be a situation where I really like Cloak's character, but I just find Dagger's character totally despicable, and I'm going to have to like deal with watching it where I only like half of what's going on. But then they pretty quickly make her more sympathetic, you know, because she is pretty hard to like when we first meet her.
Yeah.
But they do a good job of making her sympathetic quickly without taking the cheap shot and having her say, I only do this because, and then give some like black and white, simple, 2-dimensional reason why she has turned to this life on the streets. They make it a little more complex, but still make her sympathetic.
Yeah, I agree.
Not too shabby. Now, before we get to our kind of final analysis, since we're not doing a whole season here, we won't give an actual Robin rating because, hey, we may go back to actually review this whole thing. But before we do all that, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question. Even though some people on the internet don't like us doing it for some weird reason, we're going to ask ourselves how this movie relates to one, or this television program, rather, relates to one Sylvester Stallone.
It's one guy, Adam. One guy. It's okay.
But it just feels like it's personal.
Well, of course it does.
Let's see. I don't know, Sean. This might be a moment, and I hate to delay your
please.
But I think we need to investigate what personal growth Adam has gone through in the past 4 years. Because Dan Dew leaves a negative review, and Adam has a field day with it. Yes. This guy leaves a negative review, and Adam's having an existential crisis. So has he matured in the past 4 years, or has he been broken down?
I can't explain that. I think that it's because
no
Dan
one can
Dew
explain the enigma that is Adam.
Well, I think Dan Dew came at us with this isn't about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and that's stupid.
Yeah, because it really was a thing that we weren't really talking about. He thought we were something far different than what we never ever purported ourselves to be. So I think that's what infuriated me more than anything. It was like, when did we ever say that's what we were?
Right. Whereas this one guy, and you're literally talking about one guy. One guy sent us a review that is negative, and it's very eloquent, and he makes some excellent points.
No, he really does. That's the best part about it, is that one of the reasons that I can't get super mad at it is because I read it and I just go like, he's got points, and I can understand exactly where he's coming from.
Right, but
he also has a point in it that's like, you put a little bit of cilantro in that salsa, and I don't like cilantro, so I don't like this salsa. Meanwhile, the name, there are plenty of people that would not like it if you didn't have the cilantro in it. So sometimes you have to understand that you're going to lose a few people.
First of all, if you don't like cilantro, just unsubscribe to this podcast right now. I don't know that I want you here.
Some people, cilantro tastes like soap.
Yeah, I know that. I know that's true. That's
exactly.
That's a genetic thing.
That's why I
get
picked
it.
that, because there's some things that it's like, you know what? You just can't. You've either got to have the pro cilantro people or the anti cilantro people. You can't have them both.
I've said it once. I've said it a million times. HMP, we're your cilantro.
But a little bit of what he said was just simply, I don't like cilantro.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's
all going to be fine. Adam, I hate to say this to you, but it's going to get much worse with the more success we have.
I know.
You do understand that.
Now, at this point, though, Sean, okay. Now, 4 or 5 years ago when you said that to us, I understood. But at this point, I'm not sure that there's much more success in store for us. Like, I think we found the amount of success we can carry for a nice long time. But I kind of think, it's like the 32-year-old guy in AAA still waiting to get called.
So Bruce is not a fan of the podcast.
Well, I'm just saying, you're 32 years old and you're the best catcher for the Durham Bulls. That might be where you peak is the best, and there's no shame in being the best catcher for the Durham Bulls.
Or you could be Rodney Dangerfield and hit it big when you're 65.
Or Regis Philbin. So let's try to be the Regis Philbins of podcasts.
I'm telling you, Sean, you're going to want to give us that Stallone connection. It's a good...
All right. So thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Jasper Randall is the choir contractor on Cloak and Dagger, which is exactly what it sounds like. He's a dynamite expert that blows up boulders should they roll into the middle of the highway when people are shooting a movie. Jasper isn't the best choir contractor in the business, though, because Hollywood invented a machine they call the Choir Contractor 3000, which can blow up boulders faster than any man. Anyway, Jasper Randall's first movie was An American Tail, a movie many people have fond memories of, but most people forget that the characters break out in a song in that movie, which maybe some people are into, but I am not. Whenever I'm watching a movie and the characters break out in a song, I'm out. And I get a look on my face that everyone else gets when I start talking about my love of the Fat Boys. Jasper Randall has never stopped working and has damn near 250 credits on his resume, including 5 acting credits. But the highlight of his career is no doubt when he worked as the choir conductor on the movie Creed, starring a man that every fat old Italian guy thinks that they look a little bit like, Sylvester Stallone. Apollo is the 7th movie in the Rocky series, and the first one not written by Stallone. Also, Stallone was the same age as Burgess Meredith when the first Rocky movie was in production, 69 years old. Now, there's some low-hanging fruit there, but I'm going to move on. Stallone credits Apollo as the job that helped him get through the passing of his son, and Stallone is terrific in Apollo. I'm interested in seeing what the next 10 years of Stallone's career looks like, because if someone were to tell me 20 years ago Stallone would still be playing Rocky and I liked the movie, I would have told them they're insane. And there you have it, HMPers, this week's Stallone connection. It's Jasper Randall. Now, White Cloak and Boy Dagger, let's review the first couple episodes of Cloak and Dagger without using the Robin rating system.
Well, overall, I got to say, this was kind of a shock for, maybe not a shock, maybe a bit of extreme word, but I enjoyed it more than I had expected to. I thought it was going to be very free-forming, and it was, but it wasn't assaulting, you know? I didn't feel like, oh, no, this is, it's too much, it's too... in the, you know, kind of teen area. It was good enough, and like I said, it kind of keeps me wanting to come back, and I think I'll definitely we'll go back and do some more, at least as far as I'm concerned. What do you think, Bruce?
I think so, man. I think so. I definitely wouldn't complain about it. Like I said before, man, I found it intriguing, and to me that goes a long way. I enjoy being intrigued. And found myself curious. I mean, I couldn't point to any scenes that I thought were just downright awesome. I can't point to anything that knocked my socks off, but I liked it. Now, if I were, you know, in that YA target audience, I'd probably like it even more. But I will say it takes some sort of cliched YA tropes that have been well tread, and you know, nothing new there about the high pressure parents that want you to be an overachiever, you know, worried that you're going to fall in with the wrong crowd. Meanwhile, you've got like she's not quite a manic pixie dream girl, but she's got some of that going on with her. And I think that it could easily become very cliched and tired, but it doesn't. And I think it's really hard to flirt with being cliche and not become cliche. And I'm only 2 episodes in, so that could all change, but I wouldn't complain if we watched more of this. So I guess that's a pretty good positive.
Yeah. Keenan, what do you got?
I went into the show with absolutely no expectation. And I was interested. You know, after the first episode, I was like, you know what? This is not going to be hard getting to the second episode. I think that the main characters, the main actors playing the characters, they're good at their job. I think that both of them are interesting. And I think that both of them have something different that you don't often see in TV shows. They're not perfect looking people. And I think that that's very cool, and I like that. Also, they're like, because, you know, no one is ever going to call the girl who plays Cloak ugly, but she is definitely not your typical leading lady type of actress. And I like that a lot. And I like that the characters themselves they have a lot going on internally, which means that, you know, you're not going to have the stupid moments at like you have on The Flash, where people like they have to make a new soap opera every week in order to keep the show going. You know, everything's going to come from within, which is going to be a lot more interesting, in my opinion, than if we're watching The Flash yet again sit in the coffee shop moping.
And I'll be honest, because of the network, I was really expecting a lot of that soap opera type stuff, or at least Pretty Little Liars type stuff.
And it's definitely there. It's just not, you know, it's just not insulting.
Yeah. And I it feels like I really like how they're taking their time with everything. And, you know, we're only 2 episodes in, and the 2 title characters haven't had that much interaction with each other just yet. So they've rarely, you know, touched the surface of what their powers are, what they mean, where they came from. We're still in very, you know, mysteried place 2 episodes in. And for a show to really kind of sit back and just go like, no, we're going to wait for this to unfold is kind of daring these days.
One thing I will say is I hope that they don't feel the need to go down a romantic angle between Cloak and Dagger, because I think it's cool the dynamic they have right now.
Oh, that's definitely going to happen, though. I mean, they're setting all that up.
It just feels inevitable.
I hope they don't, because that would be like one of those things where you're flirting with the cliche and then you choose not to pursue it. Like, they need to bring in a girlfriend for Cloak or something, because we already kind of got a boyfriend for Dagger. And I think it would be interesting to see, you know, a show that has young, attractive people that are facing adversity together and don't try to pursue
or
romance.
At least that kind of needs to, or at least like there's some of it just needs to come into play and maybe not necessarily work out towards that way, you know. And I get what you're saying, Bruce, and I like it. Do I think that that's where they're going to go? No.
Yeah. Like I anyway.
You're right. I think it would be much more interesting that way because it flaunts the regular convention of it and everything. So, but hey, who knows what will happen? In fact, we can actually know what happens if we watch some more. So maybe wait a little bit and keep following this here program, and perhaps we might go and review the rest of the season once that's all done and finished there. In the meantime, Bruce, before we announce what we're doing next week, because I think everybody knows, where can we find more of your work on the internet, sir?
I think I'll just tell people to go check out Chubby Wizard. It's a podcast that I do with my good friend Chris Elvins. We recorded our most recent episode live from Cottage Country Comic Con, where I got to hang out with Jim Starlin and Kevin Eastman and James O'Barr and the Nikolai Volkov, the former tag team partner of the Iron Sheik. So some cool stories going down there. We talk about a little bit of everything that comic book fans might find interesting, and occasionally stuff that you won't. So
safe to say, though, that James O'Barr has not listened to any HMP.
No,
because you're still living.
Very nervous about that. Yeah. And he's actually such a such a cool guy that next Halloween I want to tell more stories about how cool James O'Barr actually was when I rode in a pickup truck with him.
Very good, Mr. Keenan. Who have you been riding in pickup trucks with?
That's none of your business, and I thank you to stay out of my personal affairs. You can find me at the Preacher Podcast that I do with What's His Nuts and That Idiot. And there's a third guy that I can't remember his name, but he's not on this show right now that we're currently on. He's just on the Preacher show. I don't remember anyone's name, but there's the Preacher Podcast. We do it each week. We do 2 episodes. The first episode, we break down the show itself. And then the second episode, we talk about the book a little bit more and how it relates to the TV show. And we do a little bit of we listen to the people who listen to our show, and we read their mail. And it's pretty great. It's a pretty great show, actually.
I don't want to put you.
Show, I mean.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the hot seat too quick here, but will we see a return of the Shameful Paycheck this year?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I don't know. Let's say yes.
Just put that on the shelf for later.
Sure. Let's say yes. Why is everyone champing at the bit trying to?
I know I am.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I it's a segment I enjoy.
The only problem with it, though, is that, when you're dealing with people who are doing one-offs on the show, because that's generally what we would have to do. Like, it's not fun to me. It's not fun kicking those people because, they're just trying to make a living.
God bless them. They're character actors that are just trying to make it meet, Yeah.
Right. They're just trying to make their mortgage.
But then again, it did give us Fart the movie.
It did give us Fart the movie.
Sometimes, the Lord shines upon us.
It's true. And maybe one day we'll have another Fart the movie or something like it.
One can only dream and wish. And you can check that out at preacherpodcast.com or anywhere where you find podcasts. How about that? And, of course, the Film Find, thefilmfind.com. We had a little week off here and everything. Matt's coming back in probably about 2 weeks once he finally gets his doctorate and everything. But early next week, we're going to have an episode talking about all the Jurassic World stuff. Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, and the movies themselves as an overall oeuvre, if you will.
Who'd have guessed it would take so long to become a doctor?
Yeah, what why would you do such a thing?
Hey, it was the quickest 24 years of my life.
But next week, everybody, we've got a little something special for you. Another one of the fantastic Marvel movies. We are talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Boy, this movie looks like a ton of fun. And if the first movie's any indication, you got all the same crew and team coming back for this one. So I figure we should be in for a mighty good time. So that's what we'll be reviewing next week, everybody. So that is it. Again, we'd like to thank everybody that goes over to patreon.com/HMP and helps keep this show moving, get pre-show, post-show, and all that kind of good stuff. Help us out there. We really appreciate that. Until next week, everybody, for Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie. Goodbye, Commodore.